All right, so remember we're going to Google Classroom. We have this Camera Sim app. We're trying to figure out the difference between aperture, what happens when you set aperture, blurry with a big hole, landscape with a small hole, and then in there we kind of touch on shutter speed a little bit. How if the shutter's faster, it can capture faster movements, slower. You can do stuff like light graffiti or steel wool photography. And then you want to try to always keep the sensitivity of your screen that's collecting the picture low. If you have it high, it's going to get grainy. Right, so we get in here, remember we're clicking on Camera Sim, and sometimes you're going to have to hit download now. And sometimes it won't hit allow. If it doesn't do allow, then I'll have to come over there and mess with it. We get to that point where we're setting our aperture, so we do aperture priority. We would do, the trickiest is f of 22, so remember that takes your light and brings it down a lot, so see that our light meter is down quite a bit. So you're going to have to mess with it to get a good picture. You should get smiley faces, so I have to bring my light up because you need more light for photography. I could bring my ISO up to about 400 and it wouldn't be too grainy. That would increase my shutter speed, and so on and so forth. So we take our picture, if we get a smiley face, then we should be able to hit print screen, so I'd have to get this green screen thing going, hit print screen. Dang it. It's not my screen recording. And then do a box around it, capture that smiley face and all that information of the f-stop and everything, save as, and then you should be able to put this in your desktop underneath folder number 2, save. All right, so that's the stuff we're doing to learn about all of the aperture stuff. Okay. Then we go back to Google Classroom and we are going to do, we're skipping to number 3 because we're going to go take pictures next week at some point outside when it's warm enough. That's what I love about Blaine. You're not afraid of the cold. Champlain Park would not go outside. If it was like 50, they'd complain. All right, so 1 from the 1-minute video, 2 from the 7-minute videos. Basically, that it needs to look good. If one of them is going to look weird and 2 of them are going to look good. So there's the 2 videos. I'll put up the screencast also. The screencast is going to be a little bit long. All right, so we get into Photoshop, and you want to go into Bridge, but for some reason my Bridge is crashing. So I'll just go File, Open from Photoshop for this one. And then you want to find a picture where there is a deep depth of field. So deep depth of field means you can see really far back into the picture. The picture's all in focus, and you're trying to take that stuff that's really far back in the picture and blur it out so that the dog pops out of the picture. So what I would do here then is this would be in focus, the sand, because that's close to the lens of the camera. The dog would pretty much be in focus. The stuff between his legs would be out of focus. I'll get to you in a sec. And then anything that's a little bit further out would be out of focus. So the gist of it is you're going to go to, you're going to make a new layer. Well, not a new layer, sorry. Delete. You're going to duplicate the layer. So we're going to right click on this. We're going to duplicate the layer. We're going to have a background layer and a background copy. And we're creating a thing called a mask. So what a mask is you put some kind of effect on this top picture that you can add to it or remove from it really quick. In this case, it's going to be a blur. When we do other assignments, it could be any other effect. But what a mask is it's a really quick way to just add and remove effects, tweak it really quickly down to the pixel layer instead of having to hit Control-Z all the time. It's really fast. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Filter, Blur, and then it was either Gaussian Blur or Lens Blur. Gaussian Blur. And then we are going to set the blur that we want. And in the video, I told you to use the gradient tool, my bad. So we'll get the blur so it's believable for the most part. And then it'll give you a preview. You click OK, and then you're going to click on this top copy, and you're going to make a mask. So what that's going to do is this mask will let you add and remove blur. And you're going to go ahead and white means blurry and black means removing the blur. So does everybody see how you can quickly paint over this and remove the blur? So those videos will get a little bit more in depth, but Control-Z, Control-Z. So what I would want to do is carefully remove the blur from the actual dog. Does everybody see how there's a really hard line right there and it's not tapering in at all? that's when we'd have to go up and mess with our opacity up here. We'd have to mess with flow, smoothing, and then also your brush type. So the hardness is very hard. The brush we have chosen has very crisp edges, so we'd probably want to choose a soft round, and then that's going to do quite a bit of difference. So get our opacity up a little bit more. So then it'll make it, you should be able to taper it in a little bit better on the edges, so it looks believable. Again, you're going to have to do a Control and plus and get into your pixel layer, and then you might have to actually on the edges get really detailed, get really far in, and then you might have to kind of just get that. So then if you go too far out, you get that really in focus, you flip it and go to the white one, and then you can add your blur. So white would add your blur in this case, black would remove your blur. You can see over here on this mask that you have a preview of black, that's where there is no blur, white, that's where there is blur. Make sure you have the mask chosen. If you have the actual picture chosen, it will not work. You'll just be painting in the color that you have chosen. If you have the mask chosen, then you'll add and remove the blur. Anybody have any questions on this?